And yes, you can put that a lot of the time down to throws, but we hear that argument all the time, right? Like, the only way this deck loses is if you throw the game, and, you know, it can't always be true. It might be true this time with this deck, but it can't always be true.
Bottom 4 field contact, how about that? Is that a throw?
I mean, that sounds like a throw to me, to be honest. But we will move on. We do have Demon Hunter going up against Rogue. This is a problem, even though in the previous series we saw Letta pick up the win with Fell Demon Hunter against Rogue. That matchup is a lot worse than this one because of the lack of glide. And we even see Seiko glide far left next to the quest. He has got this set up and ready to go. So we'll see how Casie chooses to navigate this through the early turns, because I think as Rogue play has evolved, they have got better at playing around those glide outs in a lot of situations. We'll see if Casie does the same.
It's definitely, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's a deck that very much wants to draw, have a big hand for those Octo reduces. So to actually play around glide, you have to just play the deck extremely, like, in an extremely different way. And I think a player like Casie will be comfortable doing that, but I think your average player, it definitely would not be the case. And I could imagine a lot of games almost being just thrown by trying to play around glide in a weird way.
Unfortunately, this hand didn't really have much of an option to do that. No Neophytes to tempo, no Divine Shields to tempo, that kind of thing. So in the end, did just have to play the Swindle on 2 with the prep, just hope that the glide isn't there. He's of course already seen the Illidari Studies discount come into play, so glide could come out here if Seiko would want to, but now, having picked up 0 mana Spectral Sight instead, he has the chance to pick up some nice juicy discounts this turn.
And I really like this, because that glide is sitting in outcast position whenever he wants it, right? There's no rush to play it right now. Casie hasn't really drawn tons of cards. There's no Octo reduction happened.
That's a brute, isn't it?
Yeah.
Attack goes down to 2, trade goes down to 1, coin it out. It's 1 brute on turn 3 if he really wants it.
I don't hate it. The only problem is he does have glide next turn, so is it ever like 1 brute isn't quite enough brutes? And he thinks he can get more out of it?
How many brutes is enough brute to brew? I think because he has glide in hand, that's exactly the reason why you do it, right? Because it spends the coin, it spends the brute, it brings your hand size down a little bit. I think this makes the most sense. He might even choose to hold the sigil. Yeah, I like this as well. So next turn, he will sigil glide almost certainly.
Pemplinger's got it covered though, Sol. He's all over it. Does allow Casie to dump some cards though, which is a benefit at least.
Yeah, pretty nice outcome in the end.
I think Casey's almost wishing for a glide at this point, because his hand isn't really doing much else, is it?
Yeah, the Kazakus is okay, but the rest of the hand pretty garbage at this point. So I think he'll be fairly happy seeing a glide on the other side. And this is the dynamic I did talk about, right, where you can play around it just by getting cards out of hand. Obviously, he was primarily reacting to a brute, but I think compensating in this position.
I like
Seiko just saying, well, in that case, fine, just me.
And I was going to say, like, there's got to be thoughts from Seiko here of Casie having 4 cards in hand. Surely it's not a glide here, but I do like Seiko's approach of going for the non-outcast version and basically having a one-sided glide that really does benefit him.
Yep. I'm sure we'll be seeing Tempo Kazakus now from Casie, and with this hand, we'll probably be going 5, I would imagine. Yes, indeed. Because even if you're going to take a card draw option, I think you're desperate enough for cards that you'll take 5 mana draw 2 at that point. And obviously, if you get a big tempo minion, then you'd much rather be going for 5 in that position as well.
Yeah, for a second I did just look at, because he had the mana and he would have had 2 minions on board and a Shadow Step, whether a +1/+1 would be anything to look at, but I think the board's just a little bit too small.
Another happy guildie.
What was that? Divine Shield draw 2, I believe, on the Golem?
Indeed.
Seiko can cycle this Rush Drop Viper if he really wants to, but wouldn't we leave him 3 mana to achieve something with 1 card? So I do think I like the acrobatics here, just to give him a few more options. I imagine he saves this double jump for the Kurtrus next turn, potentially. Yeah, snappiest of golems being played there from Casie. Makes sense. Needs to draw more, get hold of something a little bit stronger.
Suddenly the hand at least does seem to be coming together a bit for Casie on the other side, but just whether or not it ends up being fast enough in this position. Still 17 cards remaining. It's not even like he's really had the option to play around glide and turned it down. It's not even like he's had a big hand and had it glide back in. He's just not had the options so far this game. This is the first real powerful looking turn he's actually having. It's on turn 7. We've seen games where this rogue deck has 6 cards left in their deck at this point in the game, and Casie has 17.
Casie with the initial field contact turn here, going for the secret passage to see what else he can dump. The Neophyte is a great pickup, but he isn't going to value it over the One Thief combo here. He's going to go for more card draw. He has already played the Neophyte this turn. Now with Shadow Step he can replay it, so he still benefits from the Neophyte debuff on Seiko's side.
Yeah, valuing more Neophyte disruption there as well, as opposed to just having a Shadow Step target back in his hand for the following turn. His original hand does still just contain the other field contact, but obviously the benefit of a 1-mana field contact over a 3-mana field contact is very, very real, especially 8 mana, 8 cards left in deck. Like, 1 mana per card is not a bad way of looking at things if you want like a rough eyeball as to whether you can get lethal. And having, 7 mana to play with a 1-mana field contact to be able to get lethal with 8 cards remaining on deck on the following turn is probably more doable than trying to do it with a 3-mana contact instead. I think that was certainly worth thinking about.
This is really tricky for Seiko as well, right? Like, he does have the 3-mana Immolation Aura here to go for, which would do a lot of work. He could then even go for, like, can he ever commit, like, Moarg Fellscream in any way here? Does have the Il'gynoth double Moarg Fellscream, no spell damage yet in the form of a Guild Trader, but does he really feel safe at 12? Even if he makes the trade here?
12 does seem quite easy to achieve, right? It's just how much of a difference is 4 more healing in this spot, right? Yeah, go for it. He's going to go all the way up to 16 now. And we'll see if Casie thinks this is doable. 8 cards left. With the +2 spell damage that he is available, he'd have to hit 4 bleeds.
Also an interesting choice there from Seiko, right? Because he could have gone for the Moarg Fellscream first to gain more heal, and then did the Immo. He would have lost the Moarg in that case, but...
And his Kurtrus was dying anyway, so no significant effect on Kurtrus in that position.
It's just that he would have gained a lot more heal, right? That's the question.
Alright, so you know the deal by now. 0 mana cards out of hand, bleeds into the deck, drawing now for Casie. And we'll see what comes out. Was that a sigh of relief already from Casie at that point? No, it wasn't. Okay, Swindle found. So now he has to weigh up One Thief versus Swindle. One Thief draws 1, Swindle draws 3, including at least 1 guaranteed spell, but he will, of course, be out of mana at that point, and he is just going to rip it. The hand goes up, but what does it mean? No! The disappointment from Casie as he hits absolutely none of them. And now the Moarg has just stuck. The decision for Seiko to stick the Moarg has actually ended up being potentially quite relevant here.
Yeah, Immolation Aura will just fully clear the board. And also, is that, I'm going to recheck, so let's have another look at what Casey's deck is. A Garrote. So if he clears this spell damage, he's going to be feeling pretty safe.
I think he does still need to heal though, right? Because he knows there's a secret passage remaining. So Casie guarantees draws Garrote next turn. The bad draw is to draw Garrote immediately, because then he won't be able to secret passage into all 6 bleeds that are left remaining in the deck. This Okay, this is fairly hilarious from Seiko, because this is guaranteed, right? I think. Oh, well, actually, no, because you could just draw the same cards back, right? So it's actually not. That's actually just unlucky, in fact, from Seiko in that perspective to get hit by all the bleeds.
Another happy guilty.
But I think, going back to the point I was making, I think that play was necessary, right? Because assuming Casie on average draws 1 or 2 bleeds and then draws the garrote and the chain stops, he's then able to play the other garrote that he drew and then secret passage to draw the bleeds, play the bleeds manually each for 1 mana. Basically this exact play, but with more bleeds remaining in the deck and no actual cards. So Seiko did have to go for some sort of out that turn. I think he recognized that he was dead in that position. The bigger questions are about the 2-turn lines from Seiko, right? The turn before plus that turn there as to what the best way out of that situation was. But as it stands, Casie is going to go 1-0 up in the series in a marginal unfavorable, it has to be said.
Oh yeah, that was a tough game for both players, honestly. Casie, of course, just not hitting the bleeds on the turn he went for it and having just the garrote plus the bleeds in deck. But also, the choice from Seiko, as I mentioned beforehand, on the turn before that happened, when he felt he had to heal, he went for the Moag Fellscream Blast on 2 minions, when he could have done that first, hit 3 minions, which would have gained him a bit more health, and then still had the clear, but it would have sacrificed the Moag on board. But I guess my initial thought, Sol, was, well, if you're using the Fellscream Blast anyway, what is the Moag sticking for? And it would have to have been a draw off the top, right? So it was a really tough call there, and a real tough set of turns for both players. It just worked out that Seiko took a little bit too much damage, and Casie just about managed to get those bleeds through in the very, very end.
Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about here, so bear with me. We're probably not going to talk about anything else. The Moag, so he started off at 12, right? So he goes to 16 with his play, which is 1 interval of breakpoint between. If you're doing 4 damage per, if you're doing +2 spell damage, that's 2 garrotes and 1 bleed that kills you at 12, and 2 garrotes plus 2 bleeds that kills you at 16 instead. If you go from 16 to 18, that's 1 more bleed or a different interval that you then need to kill you. So 16 to 18 does make a difference in terms of the play that you're talking about of gaining 2 extra health. However, the difference of actually having the Moag in play was relevant, as we saw, because when Casie goes for it and misses, that then gives Seiko lethal outs coming straight back the other way, because he already has a Moag bought and paid for already on the board. With Il'gynoth in hand, philosophy, etc., etc., he can just load out that way and potentially win the game. Not to mention if he just draws more healing, same deal. He already has a Moag bought and paid for and in play, and there's a good chance that Casie is going to go for lethal that turn and not end up dealing with the Moag. The other option was just to not do any of that, wait until you're not as aggressively hit by Neophytes and Shadow Steps as he was in that situation, hope to not die at 12, and then heal for 1,000,000 that turn instead, right, to get out of it. But that comes with inherent risks, because again, you're at 12 instead of 16, which is an entire breakpoint lower if you're doing +2 spell damage. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. Hearthstone is hard. That was a very, very difficult endgame state to navigate. That's not even to talk about Casey's decision to go Swindle instead of One Thief in that position, and a few other sequencing things that he did at that time as well, which were probably more cut and dry correct, but something that in normal circumstances we would like to talk about, but we can't because we're already in the next game and I haven't finished yet. So here we are.
That's what we call in the business a tough game. Moving on into game number 2, though, Casie going to be on the Rogue, of course. Seiko choosing to lock in his Druid, as we can see so far, and it is again going to be the Glowfly version of this Anaconda / Celestial Alignment Druid. So again, does have that game in the mid game there with the Glowflies. Gonna see if it pays off as he faces down a very early Neophyte from Casie.
Yeah, and this is a very different matchup now, because this is a tempo-heavy matchup for the Rogue, you would have to say. Tempo doesn't really work against Demon Hunter, because you're going to get Immoed, you're going to get Fellscream Blasted. If you can curve out into Kazakas, sometimes that is good enough to get there, supported by Cult Neophytes, but against Druid, it's just game plan number 1, right? Play your stuff and hit them, and try and have 3 or 4 minions in play by the time that Glowfly Swarm can even come down. That way you're in control of the game.
Seiko choosing to skip out on the Luna this turn and actually try and bank its effect next turn with that Fungal Fortunes. I imagine he isn't going to do any kind of... Wait, I guess he could innovate Glowfly. It just feels a little bit small.
Yeah, and you cannot do that now, right? It's strictly illegal because of the play that Casey's made on the other side. Yep. You're kind of just obligated to clear this up. Using the Divine Shield here, it might seem strange in terms of, well, what does this actually play around from Casey's perspective? But it plays around kind of that exact scenario Raven's talking about. Like, say Innovate, Glowfly, and Luna was a 3-card hand, which wouldn't be unlikely because you keep a lot of those cards in this matchup. Innovate, Luna, Glowfly could have been a play that comes out here, but instead, Seiko has to hero power the Divine Shield. It's just about the only realistic way that his deck has of clearing this field contact, so it really shuts down a lot of actual aggressive plays that Seiko can make this turn.
Okay, went for another Glowfly. I was looking at Guidance to see if that would potentially get him anything here, but he's just going to keep it simple. And of course, either way, the field contact, as you mentioned, does need to fall. Oh!
Come back! You were so young!
Okay, he was chosen.
Okay. Casey's run out of tempo, so he's going to passage looking for some more. One Thief will do nicely, I imagine, depending on what the rest of this is. Yeah, especially with the prep now as well. He has the option to make some magic happen. Wow, preps it out just to get another 2-1 on board. This
Max
is exactly the kind of thing I was talking about, yeah.
They're pretty good secret as well, right? Netherwind versus Druid in this situation. You know, imagine Seiko wants to play Glowfly here, and if he does, he's not only going to be facing down this board, which is a pretty strong anti-Glowfly board, but also one additional minion. But even in respect of that, I think Seiko just has to go for this. It's just whether he feels he has to start Innovate. No, okay. I'm gonna go.
You've got me fired up.
A good one. Oh my god. Doesn't seem fair, does it, Sol? Just doesn't seem fair.
It does not.
Great outcome from the Netherwind portal. There's a Plunderer. Everything else that you could want. Yeah, there's a Brain Freeze in there as well to help clear up some of this. Casie is dominating, and with the Neophyte number 2 being played, it just limits what's even possible there for Seiko.
Yeah, limits it to basically nothing. And this is the pitfall of Last Hero Standing, right? I think it turned out just kind of by pure chance that the queue order opened with a real crucial matchup on both sides. It's a close matchup, but one that I would say is Demon Hunter favored. And so if the lineup had broken down in a different way, Rogue might be picking up a win, and then Seiko would be counter-queuing with that Demon Hunter to try and take it out of the series, right? The fact that they met in Game 1 and the Rogue was victorious in the unfavorable, Seiko's now had to queue Druid into Rogue, which... It's not a miserable matchup, but it's not a Last Hero Standing counter queue matchup either. So now this is the position he finds himself in.
So what does this achieve? Double trade into the 4/6. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 9 damage showing.
Dead. Garrot for 3 and dagger the spell damage.
I was just going to say, spell damage still on the Neophyte. Allows him to push the extra damage. Casie goes 2-0 up with Rogue. And in a little bit more... smoother fashion in game number 2, I think, than game number 1. A little bit more straightforward as Casie just went max tempo and was greatly rewarded for it. And already, him being 2-0 up means that I believe Seiko only has his own Rogue left. So we're going to end potentially the whole series on a Rogue Mirror if Casie can take the victory here.
Yeah, and I think Rogue Mirror is a very fitting way to potentially end the series for Casie, because Casey's a player I talked to a little bit, player I talked to about Rogue more than many other topics, and I think as Garrot Rogue was evolving, as it was first appearing, when we had the Masters Tour, when there was like 5 or 6 dramatically different builds of this deck hanging around, I did talk to Casie a little bit and got his thoughts on it, And one of the things we did talk about quite heavily is how you could build your deck plus and minus for the mirror, right? And what tools you actually gained or lost by playing out there. And he was one of the ones very, very early on that was telling me, you know, the combo might happen by accident, but that's a tempo matchup, and the tempo cards are the best cards, and the more tempo cards you have in your deck, the better off you are. So I think it'd be super interesting to see if someone who clearly thinks about the mirror match a lot can clutch out a much, much needed sweep for himself now in that rogue mirror.
Yeah, and although I mentioned here that Casie, of course, still has a ton of work to do to feel any level of safety in Grandmasters, a win here, that progresses him that little bit further, because the more you win in a given week, the more people can't equal you, right, in terms of points gained, because obviously we go from 8 to 4 to 2 and so on. So, like, the even just winning into top 4 is a great next step towards just getting that little bit of an edge over the people you're contending with in that bottom to middle bracket.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with EO-B. If you actually could have thought of another example in reasonable time there.
I was like,
yeah.
No.
I gave you a chance. It's very tricky.
I was leaning more towards some kind of Dr. Octopus reference.
Okay, I see.
So that is now called Otto.
Muzzle their magic.
Both players, though, have access to a pretty decent opening. Double Shroud for Seiko, one Shroud for Casie. Both Octos on either side. The big question for Casie at this point, I think, is what that Shroud hits, right? It can either be very good or a little bit underwhelming.
No, not quite.
One off, right?
You wanted to do the silly thing? Yeah, silly thing doesn't even work.
I hate it when silly things don't work.
Yeah. For those, sorry, the mind meld of myself and Raven both understanding what we were talking about. We were both looking at whether Shadow Step Prize Plunderer actually allowed you to deal with the Octobot on the other side. I'm not even convinced that would be a good thing to do, even if it were possible. But it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think over that, I'd prefer to just play your own Octo, right? And just be like, okay, let's be even.
Yeah, I mean, I think you Shroud first.
Oh.
I do agree with. Whoa! Okay. Still not sold. I'm still not sold. That's ambitious. I think it was Derek who said you can tell a lot about a person, whether they're a proc Octobot or Let It Ride gamer, and wow, that seemed ambitious.
And the problem as well is you cannot make the assumption that they don't have a way to proc Octo, right? Because so much of the deck can do it. It's not like they need one of 3 cards. It's like, no, they need one of half of the deck.
But yeah, just to break that down a little further, obviously, the reason why conventionally you trade into your opponent's Octobot in situations like that is not only do you just straight up deny 1 card minimum off the top that also then gets discounted, but in this particular version of the deck, players are so eager to Shroud before they Octobot, because the Shroud can hit the other Octobot, it can hit an Ethereal Org Merchant, it can hit Field Contact, all of these key pieces that you do actually want to get those discounts on, that you then allow your opponent to spend their mana on those cards, Swindles, Shrouds, all of these things that draw extra cards, to then move those discounts onto whichever pieces they want to.
Right.
Too quiet.
In that case, he's taking a tempo/aggro approach because that's what he's been given. Seiko, on the other hand, just wants to defend against this and keep on cooking with the card draw. Double Swindle, another Shroud obviously in hand from the beginning there. Like, he's got resources until the end of time at this point. He just has to not die.
Why is it when your opponent plays multi-Neophyte, you just immediately draw every spell in the deck? I swear this happens every time.
This is definitely one thing I really enjoy about this mirror match, and a lot of mirror matches are like, well, who does their thing first? But just the fact that the players can take very different roles in a mirror match is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a few good words.
Okay.
Keeps on cooking.
Probably
That was a snap one.
one in this case because he has the secret passage, so he's not necessarily looking for huge value. He just wants immediate tempo this turn. He did get offered deal 3, which would have been a pretty good option here. And the way that he's trading things down,
some
I
value
imagine
trades,
that's what's
yeah.
happening.
And then he has Plunderer for the other one.
Yep, boom back, 3 to 1, 3 to another. I think 2 in this case, actually, yeah.
Well, well, well.
Who's the tempo king now?
Yeah. Seiko might be in a bit of trouble. Like, he had a good turn, but none of this looks like solid removal. There's the brain freeze, of course, but one brain freeze doesn't get you far on this board.
Dwindle means he's locking himself out of anything impactful with Kazakus this turn. Still no Plunderer. So he's going to go looking with field contact, I imagine, for a prize Plunderer if he's going down that road. But even then, like, how are you drawing the cards to get to that point where you can even still play prize Plunderer? I think you have, yeah, I was going to say, I think you can go field contact. You're just kind of locked out of any removal at that point, are you not?
The brain freeze picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Can do this though. The Orc Merchant again isn't 100% needed. He is going to commit a shadow step to it to start pinging off these minions.
Glorious. That shadow step cut about what? Cut 8 damage out of his deck and removed stealth from one of his minions. That is a sign of desperation for Seiko in that spot.
The old double passage there for Casie makes his decision to start the turn. Very simple.
Yes.
Not a bad follow-up, honestly.
Oh, do you just get him in at this point? Like,
why not? Why not? Commit. Commit to the role that you've given yourself here as the aggro player.
oh, I don't know. Is brain freeze worth? Okay, he's going to do it.
It's still prep, right?
Yeah. Those are not
Does
the
the
cards.
madman do it again?
I think you just get him in, don't you? Yeah. Get him in. Get him in for the lads.
Gonna do the second brain freeze as well. Remove the Octo from the board, I believe. Casey's choice was there. And, oh yeah. Push the 2. Push the 4.
Yes!
Push the 6. Finish on a field contact? Okay. It's not terrible.
All right. He ended up, because which minion did he have spell damage on? None of them, right? Did he spell damage the opposing 2-1 on the other side?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Bopped it, yeah.
Okay.
Because I think he wasn't really planning on brain freezing 2 of his own minions at that point.
No.
So he was trying to retain the board, of course.
Yeah.
Too quiet.
You're paying for my discretion.
And that's Seiko's second dog merchant, isn't it?
You're paying for my discretion.
Yes.
Which slowly starts to make things a little bit scary because he's used both the Orc Merchants now, and Casie is on 29, so
Yes.
Seiko, I think at this point, has just decided to fight for board, right? Like, can he do anything else? Can he even do any form of reasonable combo in the late game?
No, because not only is his second Orc Merchant, it's his second field contact. So unless that thing's just living, he's in real trouble in terms of actually getting any kind of combo kill. What he does have still, though, is the resource advantage, and he would imagine still the threat advantage because he is up 1 Kazakus on his opponent. The Kazakus has already gone down for Casie, so in terms of actually getting good threats on the board, he will find himself with an advantage there. But honestly, I don't fault the field contact play entirely because there actually were not that many ways left remaining in Casey's deck with him brain freezing his entire own board on the previous turn left to deal with that field contact. Casie just happened to hit one of the few outs to deal with it left remaining in his deck.
Are we looking at a 10-cost Kazakus, Sol?
No, the game's over.
Is that where we're at?
Okay, no, well, there's still an Octobot left, so he doesn't have to get to 10 mana, he just has to get to 9. But that's marginally, that's 0.2% less ridiculous than I thought it was originally. But
I'll take it.
No.
Come on, Seiko. Make me look cool.
No.
You had this one job, Seiko.
Yeah.
Imagine he did look at spell damage at least. He'd get it off.
Yeah,
right?
spell damage is a reasonable shout. Would allow him at least to like go Garrote, shuffle the bleeds in, and then go like Golem Secret Passage, 4 mana left over perfectly to just spend 4 bleeds for 1 mana each from your hand at that point. It's a lot of damage.
It's quiet.
Okay.
Quiet.
One Maker's not a bad... one Thief, sorry, it's not a bad way to start. Those choices were, though.
Font's fine. Font's a minion, minion's a tempo. It's kind of what it's about at this point.
Are you going to finish that sentence with tempo leads to the dark side or something? Font is a minion.
Font
Minion
leads
is a
to
tempo.
minions. Minions lead to tempo. Tempo leads to victory.
Ignite. Pretty good pickup when you're at the end of the deck looking for some burn to finish the game, I will say.
He took Ignite over Flurry, which I think was close, because yes, Ignite is a bunch of extra damage over the next few turns, but Flurry was kind of a bunch of extra damage now, right? Which is kind of cool, because you could just freeze some minions, go phase.
What is the...
Give me that. Love what I know.
So he wants to Ignite, Swindle, Ignite. Okay. Did he need to bounce the contact for that?
I think he has grander plans, right? No, he doesn't have anything else left. Yeah, I was wondering whether he could like maybe play 3 Ignites in the same turn using the field contact to draw 1 more, but he doesn't really have the tools left remaining at this point to be able to do that.
Unless Font gives him something.
True, Font into 1 Thief or something, maybe.
Don't fall for everyone. They're rogue secrets. Wait.
Shenanigans is exciting, right?
Does
Right?
he know?
Right?
The best anti-Ignite.
I'm out of cards.
So there's the first card drawn in a turn. However, 2, 3, 4, Garrote, Ignite, Swindle. You can have all the bananas you want. It's going to be one of the most amusing endings to a game that we've seen in quite some time.
It's a banana! Whoop.
Shenanigans.
Order.
Banana. Give him
Could have saved an attack.
Yeah, and now here's the problem, because the banana does not redraw, which means there are now just bleeds stacked up in the deck. Yep.
But this was kind of a point. I just truly did not understand the step on the field contact.
Right.
Because there was nothing guaranteed, and he was relying on a Font to be able to do something. Whereas if he just bounced the Plunderer to kill off one of the minions and keep the field contact on board, if he could just bounce, for example, the 1 Thief to get another roll at a mage spell, I don't know.
So going back to that turn, even allowing for the fact that Shenanigans is there, right, and that your opponent's going to have picked Shenanigans, do you have the way to play?
Oh,
he played Plagiarize as well!
Lethal? Question mark?
But do you have a way, from Casey's perspective, to play around that, right? Can you still have another way? You can't, right? You can only draw 1 more card with the Swindle. No. If you play the field contact first and then play Swindle, you'll draw twice, right?
Yes.
Because the Swindle will draw, they'll hit the banana, that'll stop the chain, but then the field contact draw will still happen and you'll draw the rest of the deck.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And that was probably... Wait, did he just not play the field contact and that was the big error then? Because,
I think so, yeah.
Because he would have needed to do that in case he just drew the other Ignite, right? He still would have been 1 off if he drew...
No, if he drew the other Ignite, he
would have been
plays
3.
the other
No,
Ignite and it
right,
deals 3 damage, yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, guys, this is just weird. So, trying to get to the bottom of this. Yeah, 5 lifesteal as well. Secret passage for Seiko to get another ignite. All playable bleeds.
All the bleeds. Yeah.
It has to be lethal, right?
It's lethal.
12. Yep. Wow, what a game. I've said it all along, Sol. Shenanigans are the best.
Oh, you love to see shenanigans. I said this will be one of the funniest endings to a game of Hearthstone that we'll see. I was still accounting for the banana redrawing at that point, which of course it doesn't, because that secret would be even worse than it is already if the banana redrew you when you drew it at that point. Which, yeah, messed up Casey's thinking entirely. We believe he still has ways to play around that with the field contact, which actually... Then going back to the dynamic of us talking about, like, what do you really need to shadow step the field contact in that position? That actually makes shadow stepping the field contact 5D chess, but then unfortunately he launched his 5D chessboard into an entirely different dimension and wasn't actually able to close out the game. So it was a ridiculous ending to the game of Hearthstone, but not in the way that I was initially expecting.
Yeah, and let's be honest, have you ever seen a banana draw a card? No. So yeah, definitely doesn't do that. Makes sense. But yeah, Seiko starts to fight back, wins the Rogue Mirror in a quite crazy fashion off the back of not only shenanigans, but also just the plagiarize as well, just having that ignite to push some extra damage, then potential of drawing the ignite as well to push more. He did get hold of the bleeds, of course, but there's the fateful turn.
Oh, he didn't see it. I wanted to see the hand after plagiarize because it was just so disgusting.
Yeah.
It was just like garrot, ignite, garrot. Like, oh, it's just so much damage. And yeah, I think almost impossible at that point to not then hit the lethal off the secret passage. Arguably, actually, no, because he could have hit the ignite, even though the ignite costs twice as much as the bleeds. The fact that it does 1 extra damage still actually hits that same breakpoint in that situation. So yeah, almost impossible, I think, for Seiko not to hit the lethal there.
Oh, big game, and now Casie just has to keep his cool, honestly, after that one. After that sort of crazy ending, as he is now going to be queuing up his Face Hunter, which again, decent matchup versus Rogue. It's not the best matchup, of course. Rogue does have a decent amount of game versus Hunter if it can get on board early. But in general, it's not like Casey's completely locked out of this series because he lost that mirror. He's just a little bit more difficult for him, that's all.
Indeed, infinitely more difficult, one could say, because in the alternative, he's putting his feet up, watching the rest of the broadcast by now, having already won the series. But here instead, doesn't matter how good the next matchup is, it's still a lot more difficult than the situation you could have had. And that is a missed 1-drop going first for the Face Hunter as well, which is a bit of a disaster.
Joel Sottle just, in a very fancy way, describe the meaning of just win, idiot, with this, which matchups are better. It's like, well, they're all worse if you just won the previous game.
True, actually. Yeah.
For my discretion.
Seiko, no true surprise here, respecting the tempo plan. And I feel like, have we seen Felmore on 2 or 1 in the earliest turn possible for the player every single game of Hunter so far?
It's been extremely common, yeah. Even going across to other regions as well. Early Felmore has been the boy in these Hunter games so far. He does have Felmore plus True Aim over the next couple of turns, though, which is very nice, because it does mean that he'll be able to clear up, even if he does fall a little bit behind on board, which it does look like he is going to here. Uh-oh.
Oh, this is tough. Like, at first glance, prep, plunderer, passage, but then you're reducing down a field contact, which he could just play in Shadow Step anyway.
Yeah, that's very true.
Gonna go straight for the passage and have a look what's in the box.
Yeah, see if he can get some good tempo options out of this. If he hits any procer off this passage, there's a good chance that he just gets to play 2 or 3 minions this turn, but he just gets basically the exact same hand he had at the start.
Did he just step the Octo and be like, no, Felmore, no. You can't eat this, it's not a toy.
Choose soon.
And a biscuit
Evocation
general
in
play.
case your Octobot just survives again next turn? No, okay. It's like Vince McMahon meme levels of the Evocation Secret Passage interaction. Like, discover Evocation as Rogue. Okay, vaguely interested. Discover Evocation with Octobot on board and discount your entire Evocation. Okay, now we're talking. Do that and then Secret Passage so you get all of the discounted mage spells back to your original hand again. Falls over in chair, you know.
Whereas that version of the meme wouldn't really work in the Felmore because it's just Felmore goes face. Okay, I'm interested. Done. That's the meme. There's no second picture.
Yep. It's just first Vince McMahon face in all boxes as Felmore hits face every time. Yeah.
Okay, the fire sale actually pretty nice here for Seiko. Can just make this board go away. Doesn't really progress the overall game plan, but I think he can take a turn off to clear this. Like the refill, especially with no Wrangler being played, you can't expect to be that strong.
Sorry, did Casie just do a big comedy gulp take as he got his AoE taken down there? Like, make sure they can see it in the back in the cheap seats kind of gulp?
Probably the best response Casie could have, though, not the gulp, the barrack.
Quiet.
Because if you're gonna get your board wiped, what you need is then resources. So the old Kodo Bane gets that job done. But now Seiko getting rewarded for taking that turn off, being able to build the board, build some tempo, and also just draw through his deck with the help of that field contact. And even get this prize plunderer pretty nicely down here.
Can still drop the biscuit this turn as well, so there is a lot more to come on this turn. Foxy Fraud Brain Freeze still available, another 0 mana prize plunderer that can follow this up. Doesn't need the Foxy discount to get this one down. Oh no.
I'm gonna go coin pen and keep the plunderers.
Just coin, pen, shadow step, field contact, right?
I think so.
Oh, it's so powerful.
What if you just really assert dominance and just leave the field contact on board? Be like, yeah, you spend some burn killing this, I've got another one.
Right.
Obviously, a little bit more sensible to progress the game plan.
Rhino, maybe, for Casie? No. Would have been the perfect Rhino board to at least cash out some damage, and then he'd be able to follow up with all of the burn spells over the next turn or two, and maybe be able to get there.
This is going to be nice, though, right? He gets to proc this, give it Divine Shield, then he gets to swing, use the Divine Shield to make a trade.
True.
It looks a little bit messy, but I promise you it's pretty good. And now, prizes are going to get plundered.
Yeah, the problem is this turn is a bit more than pretty good from the side of Seiko. Wondered briefly whether this was a double contact turn, because even with double contact, just with the 2 prize plunderers and the pen flinger, he had enough to clear
You're getting it done, yeah.
Yeah, and he just would have drawn a million cards this turn, but he's doing that with a single field contact anyway.
Yeah.
So why bother, I suppose?
Yeah, I think the turn goes it's so powerful, it goes all the way past being powerful to, well, why be that powerful, right? Like, just do this, and he just still has a safety net of the second field contact available to him next turn if all things go wrong for some reason.
It wasn't me!
Job's done.
Gross. Yeah, it's way too late at this point. Casie would have needed the Rhino several turns ago to really be setting up any kind of lethal plan for himself here, I think.
There's 14 there from Seiko. So the sheer fact that Casie can't disrespect this board means that he almost certainly loses, right? Like, if he could realistically survive, then I do like what he's doing here. He's just pushing max damage and hoping he can draw something next turn. Because, weirdly enough, he does have, or would have, like, double Rhino attacks next turn as well. Because the Divine Shield and the 3/2.
Yeah, fair.
But what? All the damage and then just any sort of extra push with the Garrotes are probably going to get this done.
Yep. And you can see, I think Casey's checked out of this one as well. I think he's already looking at deck lists, talking to the admins about next game at this point. He knows what's up in this one. Seiko, on the other hand, does have a bit of a lethal puzzle to navigate because he will need as much board space as possible here to be able to find this last 1 damage that he needs this turn. So start pen flinging some stuff off your own board.
And also just Secret Passage, right?
Yep.
That's very likely to get him 1 bleed.
Swindle is going to hit specifically a spell, and Garrot will do nicely. Yeah.
Use the bleed.
It wasn't me.
Boo. Okay, that's going to be the game for Seiko, evening up the series, and it feels like it's spiraling out of control, Sottle, after that rogue mirror earlier on. The crazy ending, a game that looked like Casie had secured. After that loss, now Seiko's won again with the rogue, and now I was talking with you about this in the break. This wasn't even like technically live work going on, but I was just saying that the Warlock that Casie has left feels so slow that you could even argue Warlock in a lot of circumstances was slow versus, or too slow versus Rogue before it got nerfed, and now that's definitely true. Like, it's not even really a question anymore. So I am a little bit worried for Casie now that he only has this Warlock left. No Ruined Mithril Rod, the nerf on the quest as well, slowing down everything. Very reliant on a full hand. So even if Seiko played has a tempo opening, that's still relatively strong versus this Warlock, just because of how slow it's got.
Oh, it is slow, isn't it? When the list actually appears in front of you, you're like, oh, this is a very different deck for what we've been used to seeing play this matchup. But yeah, I mean, and we have to, of course, talk about Casey's mental state going into this as well, because, you know, he's, again, been tweeting that he's been very stressed out by stuff that's been going on this season. He did the same last season, in fact, like way too early, in my opinion. Like, he almost wrote his like goodbye from GM post last year as if he had already been relegated, and then ended up managing to survive in the end. But, you know, what does it do to someone to get back close to being over the line, and then you saw it on his face over that last term when he knew he'd thrown it all away, to now come all the way back to 2-2 with everything on the line. But if we want to talk silver lining, right, what has slowed down about Warlock? The quest completion, right? What does the quest completion do? Nothing particularly relevant in this matchup, right? It's a few procs on Giant that makes it a little bit slower to get that Giant as cheap as humanly possible. I think, honestly, the bigger miss is the Ruined Mithril Rod, and honestly, the bigger miss on top of that is the fact that even if you had Ruined Mithril Rod, that Baron Scavenger that Casie just threw away would still cost you 1 mana no matter what, because those were the big turns that ended up coming down, right? Giant, Scavenger, Cult Neophyte. You can still do most of that. You can still maybe get down, you know, 1 Giant, a Null, a Cult Neophyte, that kind of thing. It's not going to be as oppressive a turn as you could get before, but the core game plan of the Rogue matchup in particular is still relatively intact for this deck, if you want to be seriously optimistic about the way the matchup goes.
Yeah, and thanks to Lorinda for letting us know, but let's just remind everyone, Casie did 2-0 out of groups with this lineup, and apparently Warlock went 5-0 in that run, so he has been winning with the Warlock. It's just this matchup specifically I felt was slightly unfavored for Warlock anyway, and it does just feel slower without that Mithril Rod and without the Scavenger 0 mana. So let's see how it pans out as we already dive into the game here. Already starting on turn 2, Seiko making some level of kind of tempo, but also just kind of fishing for card draw, because at the moment, Seiko's hand isn't as powerful as some of the opening hands we've been seeing lately from Rogue.
That is true. No Octobot, no real plan with field contact just yet. Does find Arcane Intellect, which is a decent substitute shroud in this position, but still not as explosive as we have seen. Looks like it's going to take Seiko a little bit to get going here, but in the meantime is quite happily chipping away for 4 a turn with the minions and the dagger. Alright, an Ethron picked up means that pressure can potentially start nice and early here. He will use the Null to release some pressure, can tap into a Ethron now on the following turn.
Seiko in a bit of trouble again. He does have Swindle, so he can continue with the card draw. It's just how he procs it's a little bit strange here. Has Brain Freeze to kill the Null if he wants to anyway, but yeah, he's just going to give Divine Shield back to the One Thief to get this combo train going.
Yeah, it looked like he was considering leading step with the way that his mouse movements went, because he went to cue the attack with the One Thief first.
Yeah.
But then changed his mind and chose to proc with Gordon instead.
I do like him using the Plunder over the Brain Freeze, because of course if those giants or big minions do come down, Brain Freeze not only damages them, but actually just freezes them out for a whole turn, and Rogue might not be able to smoothly kill a big minion in one turn, but they can probably do it over two.
Yeah. And now Anethron does hit the board. He's going to use the Cult Neophyte to support it, just slow Seiko down a little bit. Anethron, not too difficult to deal with for Rogue in most situations. It's generally small sources of damage that Rogue deals in, so Brain Freezes and mid-sized prize plunderers can generally take care of this relatively easily. The difference between Anethron and a Giant in this matchup is pretty huge, I would say.
Yep, there is the Shadow Step, that although it's 1 mana, could still be useful here for the prize plunderer that's on board. We could push the 2 to face. I mean, already he's pushing Casie pretty low, and there is the Spice Bread Baker in hand that we can see, the one sort of easy heal card that Casey's got access to, but being 8 cards still away from that 10 or less means even Bristlebacks feel like a long way away from being active right now in terms of health recovery.
Whoa, really? He's going to step it back now. Okay, fine.
Gotta let the Anethron live.
Letting the 8 be an 8. Alright. Do this.
I guess the good thing here is he's actually pressuring Casie a lot. So
Yes.
what's the punish for leaving a Netheron up generally? It's Wind Fury from the Battleground Battlemaster, or it's Casie kills the other minions somehow and pushes 8. So we can see that's going to likely be the option from Casie, but this is kind of fine because then a Netheron pushed 8. And it's very easy for Seiko to deal 1 damage at this point.
It is, yeah. I do wonder whether it could have been done preemptively as well, though. Like you said, there's only very specific things that you get punished by here. I don't think Battlegrounds Battlemaster is realistic, so the only real thing to worry about was the Soul Rend.
Right.
You could have just shipped 1 minion into the Anetheron to play around this scenario, right? Which I think is a very reasonable thing to do.
That's true.
Because not only does your opponent then not have an 8-1, he's also Soul Rending less cards out of his deck, so he's less likely to get that Baron Scavenger stuff online, which is key to victory a lot of the time. So I think I would have liked to have seen 1 minion get traded in that spot.
Give me that. Not what I want.
And yet again, another board being built here for Seiko. Probably going to end the Shadow Step on the field contact once again. Makes perfect sense. Got 2 Secret Passage to maybe even draw for the bleeds again. The way this game's going. Casie on 12 health does have Spice Spread, but that's 4 out of 7 available mana. And these Giants cost 5.
$11 cards still left in deck as well.
Haven't heard of me.
Okay, he's going to go double touch. Gets to land a Giant down with this as well, so this is something. Now, the Battleground Battlemaster is more of a threat.
True.
I believe that is a spectator bug there from the Garrote. It doesn't... It's not a card I'm not aware of, is the Soul that just gives a thing spell damage.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Well, was a talented Arcanist in Rogue, weird interaction, but no, not that, no. It's just a visual bug.
Aegwin buff now goes on spells as well.
That's right, yeah.
I think I'm going to go fishing here. But what is he fishing for at this point? Trying to
He's
dump
just-
cards.
Yeah, he's just secret passaging to get some cards out of his deck. And just making sure he has the lethal set up for the following turn. Ideally, he would also be taking some amount of damage off the board here.
Big
There we
draw.
go. Brain Freeze is the perfect pickup.
Yep.
Because he just wants to shut down any possible lethal coming back the other way. It was a very niche lethal that would come back the other way in this scenario, but Brain Freeze removes it entirely here. Wait a second. That's a 10-card hand. He does have both Grots in it already, though.
I thought you meant Casie for a second. I was like, no, it's not. I was like, what's he on about? Where's he going now? But no, you are right with Seiko, of course.
Yep.
Big heals now coming out from Casie, though. Spice Bread and Bristleback lands a giant and even gets in the Scavenger at 1 mana.
Okay. Octobot burned.
So I'll make a call right now. Lethal or not lethal?
Lethal.
Okay. Well, if it's not, you're never going to see Sol again, guys.
You just go Prep Shroud, you have your Ethel left, right, at this point. There's the Ethel. That was the burn, right? That was what Seiko potentially threw on the previous turn with the 10-card hand. If he burned the Ethel off the top, then he was in a whole world of trouble because Casie had the big heals to come out of this position.
Just got to make sure he's got this ordering right. He's planned out where he's aiming everything. All cards out the deck now, so it should become a lot simpler.
Yeah. Prep, Garrot, Penflinger, right?
How much is that?
It's only
1 spell damage.
It's only 1 spell damage, right? He's used
Yeah.
both Shadow Steps already. Oh, my bad. I thought there was a step left as well.
That's where I was like, I'm not great at counting quick Garrote numbers, but it's only 1 spell damage, and Casey's on 29.
No, you are absolutely right. I forgot that both steps were used on contacts to get to this point. I thought there was still just a step hanging out in the hand, and there absolutely wasn't. So actually, the Octobot being burned there as well was probably relevant, right? Because if he'd have got the Octobot, if he was able to get an Octobot discount, there was a chance to go for like Kazakus 1 mana spell damage going.
Spell damage,
the extra
yeah,
spell damage
yeah.
in that position, maybe fit all that in that spot. So actually, the 10-card secret passage ending from Seiko did end up being the potential throw in this series. This has been a sloppy one. It's been an end of series kind of relegation nail biter with all the pitfalls that do come with that. But in the end, Casie dodges by the narrowest of margins to find his way out of this series, and look at what it means to him.
And I think, as he saw the turn actually end from Seiko, obviously Casie, he knows Rogue, he knows how much damage was available there from the Garrotes. As soon as the turn was ended, I think you just saw him let out a sigh. It's like, oh, okay. Because like you said, this was too close for both of these players, I think. Seiko just putting himself in a rough position with that overdraw in this game right here. Casie, of course, just almost created this kind of high-tension situation for himself in game number 3 when it looked like he was in such a great position to just 3-0 his top 8 match, move straight onto top 4 and onwards tomorrow, which caused all of this to get crazy in the first place. So, like you said, a bit of a sloppy series, but I think a good series overall, at least if you're a viewer. Maybe not for these two, but for the viewer aspects all, I'm happy. It was a close one.
Yeah, exciting series, certainly, but moments of indecision, moments of sloppy play on both sides, potential throws on both sides as well. But, you know, sometimes that just adds to the drama, right? Sometimes high-level competition is about nerves and who keeps them better. We had that with Tice yesterday, and he's perhaps the greatest of all time at doing that, right? Like, maybe he isn't the most spectacular, inspired, high-level, outside-of-the-box Hearthstone player of all time. What he is consistent and a consummate professional where he can keep his nerve under pressure. And I think we saw a little glimpse behind the curtain where maybe we lingered on his camera a little bit longer than he might have thought we did, and the veneer broke and he was flapping around his room, letting out some of the nervous energy. I think that was great to watch yesterday. But that's the kind of thing that Tice can do that very few other people can because of the legacy that he has in competitive Hearthstone. And I think we saw as we get to crunch time now at the end of the season, 2 players with still a ton of experience, but a bit less than Tice, and what pressure pressure can do to those people in those situations.
Yeah, and we do see, of course, Casie, Letta, the players who have won today, making it to the semi-finals. And if you're a little bit confused by why the bracket looks like it's not played out in that order, it's because it hasn't been. We've changed the schedule around just a little bit, and if you're wondering who's going